Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. I know you heard me starting off the show talking a little politics because how could we avoid Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris calling him out. Donald Trump looking like he running for cover, for crying out loud. That's right, I said he looked like he running for cover. But we'll get into that another time, another day, because we've already gotten into that enough. I got to transition to the world of sports and basketball because the Olympics are on the way in Paris. That would be Paris, France, of course. And Team USA, because I'm a basketball lover, is my focal point. Sure, I'm looking forward to track and field. Sure, I'm looking forward to some swimming. Sure, I'm looking forward to those things. But damn it, you understand? I love me some basketball, okay? Track and field, I just want to focus on that as well because I love that. But let me say this about some basketball. Team USA better win. They better win. I don't want to hear about no France. Even if they do have Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I don't want to hear about Serbia, even if they do have Nikola Jokic. I don't want to hear about Canada, even if they do have my league MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and that brother Jamal Murray, who's no joke, and a former Nick and R.J. Barrett, and the Hall of Fame pest that is Dylan Brooks. I don't care about all of that. It's Team USA. It's LeBron James. The flag bearer, okay? That LeBron James. 39 looking like 29, busting everybody's living what? It's about Steph Curry. It's about Devin Booker. It's about Drew Holiday. Leave that screen up. I want everybody to see it. It's about Tyrese Halliburton. It's about Anthony Edwards. It's about Jason Tatum, the champion that is Jason Tatum. It's about Kevin Durant, KD Trey, who hasn't played in exhibitions, who's expected back at some point, was one of the greatest Olympians ever. It's about that dude, Anthony Davis. It's about Derek White. It's about Joel Embiid, the one who says he'd be in a GOAT conversation were it not for injuries. And of course, Bam Adebayo. Team USA got a crew. They don't have a team. I get all of that because they ain't accustomed to playing together, but they got a crew. They're so talented, it should be able to make up for the lack of cohesiveness and chemistry. I don't want to hear it. You got to handle your business. You got to handle your business. The question is, how difficult will that be to pull off? And believe it or not, it's not a question for me to answer because while I know my NBA basketball, damn it, I don't know everybody on Serbia. I don't know everybody on France. I don't know everybody on Australia and Germany and Canada. But I know everybody on Team USA. I know the person who does know all of those teams and all of the names on the team and the kind of attributes that they bring to the table. He is my colleague during my daytime job at ESPN. He is an insider, NBA insider extraordinaire. He travels all over the world with Team USA. He's been doing it for the last couple of years or so. I remember when Wembanyama was going to be drafted #1 overall. There was one man that the worldwide leader sent to Paris. And it is my next guest, NBA insider and analyst and senior writer extraordinaire for ESPN, the one and only Brian Windhorst, my colleague for my day job. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Hey, Stephen A., you're missed over here in Paris. This is your kind of scene, man.
That's what I'm saying. I'm looking at the background, the Eiffel Tower, hoping I'm like this. Wendy, he moved on up in this world. I haven't been there. I've never been there, but I give it credit where credit is due. It is well deserved. Let's get right into it because I know you're pressed for time with the opening ceremonies and what have you. Brian Windhorst, I got Canada as the #1 threat to knocking off Team USA.
Okay.
I got Canada. I'm looking at, my league MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They got Jamal Murray. They got R.J. Barrett. They got Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kelly Olynyk, Nembhard, and Indiana. I'm looking at this team, and I'm saying, hey, they got a chance. When you think about Team USA and the #1 threat to them, who do you see?
So, yeah, that's a good pick, Stephen A., because they've got 10 current NBA players on their roster. There's no team in history other than the Americans at past Olympics that have ever had that many NBA players. So, and actually all 12 of their guys have played in the NBA. And you look at them, they're the only team that can compare to the U.S. with their wing play. There's just out in Europe, out in other places in the world, they have big men, they have guards. They don't typically have NBA level wings, and that's why the Canadians have a good chance. I think when the U.S. plays against Canada, they're a little bit more comfortable. They know their players. The teams play similar styles. They don't have to get out of their comfort zone. They're not going to play a FIBA style game. They're going to play an NBA style game. So I would think that Canada has the best chance to beat the US head to head playing a regular game. But I actually think the team to keep an eye on is Serbia. Serbia has a couple things going for them. Number one, they got Nikola Jokic. Jokic is the best player in the world, best big man in the world, arguably, whatever.
Right.
Secondly, they have NBA level guards. They're not star guards, but they have Bogdan Bogdanovic and Vasily Micic. They play in the NBA. Some of these teams have great big men, and they just don't have good guards. Like that's France's problem. France has Victor Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. Their guard play just isn't that good. And this is the most important thing. They're going to get potentially 3 shots at them. They played in Abu Dhabi last week. The U.S. blew them out. But
That's right.
I think there was some rope-a-dope going on in that game by Serbia. I can't tell exactly what happened. There was something weird about the way Serbia. They sat 2 of their guys. They sat their second best big man, and they sat Bogdan Bogdanovic. And then I'm not sure that they played the game necessarily full power, even though Jokic played 3 quarters. So Stephen, there's something about the game that it seemed weird to me. They are 16-point underdogs. There's 15 or 16-point underdogs to the U.S. on Sunday. I just don't believe that number. I don't think that there are 15 or 16-point difference in their team. But they don't have to win the game in Abu Dhabi. They don't have to win the game on Sunday. They got to win the potential 3rd meeting, which is potentially in the medal round for the medal. It's hard to beat a team in any league at any time 3 times. So I think Serbia they're a serious threat. Nikola Moltenov there, that 3rd guy there, he's a number 1 draft pick. He never came over to the NBA. He was drafted by the Spurs about 7 or 8 years ago. So he's an NBA level player. He just stayed overseas. Serbia is a team that is a dangerous team. Certainly you're right, though, about Canada.
What about France? Because I'm thinking about Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I'm thinking about a front line where you can rule out those alley-oops. You ain't going to be throwing alley-oops against Wembanyama and Rudy Gobert. I don't see that happening, and I think it's going to require Team USA to shoot better from the perimeter because of the size France has on its front line, and shooting potentially, or at least sporadically, is a problem for Team USA. What about that notion against France?
Yeah, that's a fair point. So Team USA's only shot 35% on threes in their warm-up games. And remember, the line is closer. It's a foot closer in the corners. It's 3 feet closer at the top of the key. So you'd think their percentages would go up, not down. Also, Team USA they've been playing lineups without a lot of shooting in it. For example, they've been playing Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo together because they're so good defensively. And that hurts that they don't have, that's not a good shooting lineup. Here's the thing about France. 3 years ago, and the French are ahead of the U.S., I think 7 or 8 points in the gold medal game. The U.S. had to make a comeback to win that. I would have said that France would have been the favorite other than the U.S. here in Paris. Obviously, it's a home game for them. Stephen A., they have not played well over the last year. Last year at the World Cup, they did not qualify for the medal play. They got knocked out in the group stage. Wembanyama didn't play, but still it was not a good sign. They lost 4 times. They played 5 exhibition games before they came here to Paris. They lost 4 of them. So, look, if they're playing at home, you're right. They've got that great size. Maybe that ends up being a real problem for their opponents. But they do not come in here on a good momentum, to be honest with you.
Let me go on to another subject because I want to know, as you've watched Team USA, what's been the issue with them? Steve Kerr just turned on a different switch and seemed a bit different once he arrived in Paris than he was leading up to the games, going through the exhibition games that he went through in Abu Dhabi and London and Las Vegas and all of that stuff. What's going on? What's his primary concern with Team USA?
Yeah, so I think he doesn't think that they're playing fast enough. Quite frankly, we as a nation, we have no chemistry. And that doesn't mean the players don't like each other. That means that they just haven't played together very long. So when they run half-court offense, it's just not very good. Ant Edwards tends to play isolation basketball. Like I said, we don't always have the best shooting teams out there. Players don't have good feel for how to run 2-man games. I know that some of these guys have played together before, but you just can't throw dudes together in the middle of everything, expect it to all just work out fine. So what Steve Kerr wants them to do is he wants them to play fast so that there's less half court offense and more transition offense. And that should be easy to do because they're only playing 4 and 5 minute bursts. You don't have to worry about tiring yourself out. He's putting 5 subs in at a time, and those 5 subs are all stars. And what's happened, these teams are trying to slow the U.S. down because they do better in the half court defending the U.S. And it's been working against them. And so Steve Kerr, I think, reviewed the film and said, listen, I got to try to inspire these guys. And one of the big tests to me, Stephen A., is going to be on Sunday after Steve Kerr has really called them out publicly for the last couple of days, how they react to Steve Kerr trying to press them and the way their mindset is coming out against Serbia.
I expected more from Steph Curry from the standpoint that he's the greatest shooter God ever created. I know what he brings to the table. He's still a superstar in this game. And on top of it all, he's being coached by his coach. And I'm wondering, what is it? Don't get me wrong. It's not. I'm not trying to imply he's played bad, but I certainly expected him to be up there as opposed to LeBron James being the clear face, looking like the best player on the team. We know how important shooting is in Olympic competition. And what's the issue with Steph Curry?
He's just not shot the ball well. He's had a couple of games where he's been 1 of 7 on threes. He did have one great shooting game, which was against Serbia, where he scored 18 points in the first 11 minutes he was on the court. If it was a regular NBA game, he'd have gone for 45 or 50, no doubt. But he just hasn't shot it well. I mean, he's generated open looks. He just hasn't hit them. So obviously he can catch fire. He has talked about muscle memory being a little bit different, shooting the ball from 20 and 22 feet, as opposed to 22 and 24 feet as the 3-point line is in the NBA. But in all honesty, with his skill level as a shooter and the fact that he's been shooting this way for a month or so, that shouldn't be an issue. So he plays with LeBron. They run 2-man action that is extremely hard to guard. There is no reason why they won't generate open shots for him. He's just not getting it done. I would say their whole team, actually, Stephen A., the Team USA's best 3-point shooter so far has been LeBron in terms of percentage. That's shocking because we know he's fine, but he's not a good 3-point shooter, even though he had a very good year this last year. LeBron can't be your number one 3-point shooter in the percentage. You've got Steph out there. You've got Devin Booker out there. You're going to get Kevin Durant back. All that stuff's got to be in play.
Does that highlight how desperately they need Kevin Durant in order to come home with the gold?
I definitely think that they need him. I think that there's this concept that this team is so deep and, everything that they can survive without him. They can survive against Puerto Rico without him. They can survive pool play without him. At the highest level of what's going to be demanded from them, from these top teams, they need Durant. Durant is arguably the greatest Olympian in Team USA history. He's the leading scorer. He averages almost 20 points a game in Olympic games, which is hard. 20 points a game in an Olympic game is kind of like 25, 27 points a game in an NBA game because they're shorter. He's extremely valuable because he can score from all 3 levels, and he's just so hard to guard because he's so big. So, yes, they absolutely need Durant, and Durant is really focused on trying to get back. He's been working really hard. They're just trying to protect him in that calf injury. I do think he's going to be back probably for Serbia if there's no setbacks, but even if he's back in rhythm for the medal round, which is not for another week and a half, that would really be helpful.
Just a couple of questions before I let you get on out of here, because I know you got to go. And thank you so much for talking to me live from Paris. The one and only Brian Windhorst here. I got to ask you this. Looking at this roster, seeing the competition, knowing what you know about Olympic competition, covering it extraordinarily well the way that you have, did Team USA make a mistake by not adding Jaylen Brown to this team?
I don't think so, and let me explain why. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is a better player than Derek White. But when you look at the opponents in this Olympics, the best teams have strong big men and strong guards. There isn't necessarily strong wings. So if they were going to have a 13-player team, even before Kawhi went out, they were going to need another guy who could be really good on guarding the other team's guards. Like, one of the reasons why they won the gold medal in Tokyo the last time around was because Drew Holiday was able to control Patty Mills. Patty Mills was destroying the Olympics, and Drew Holiday shut him down. And so in the Olympics, not in the NBA, not in a vacuum, Jaylen Brown isn't necessarily as valuable as Derek White. I would argue that Drew Holiday was the second most important player for Team USA um, in Tokyo after Durant. And going into this team, I think Drew Holiday is among the 3 or 4 most important players, and they didn't really have a backup for him. And so when a spot came open, their biggest need was a backup for Drew Holiday. It wasn't necessarily the best wing player available. And that's a nuanced answer. That I'm telling you, that's the way they looked at it. Anybody can say that Jaylen Brown is a better player, and I don't think Derek White would disagree with that. But
Right.
for the Olympics, for this team, it made sense for them to go with Derek White. They could end up taking a loss and getting burned by a wing player, and they could have egg on their face. It's not an easy decision, but I do understand why they went this way.
Is there a player in the NBA that is not on this team that you believe should have been on this team?
That's a really good question. I mean, if Jaylen Brown had been on this roster, that would have been totally acceptable. I think Kyrie Irving would be the other guy. Kyrie's level of play, he has a history with Team USA. I think Kyrie, would have had a very strong case as well.
The star of this team for these Olympics will be who?
I think there's a chance that it could be Ant Edwards because I just think he's going to be a really scoring machine. But I'm not sure that they're going to trust him at the end of close games just because he doesn't have the reps. And I think they're probably going to put the ball in LeBron and Steph's hands when it really matters. And if they end up in a close game and they win it, it's probably going to be because of LeBron and Steph. So I think Ant Edwards is the guy that I think could be like the breakout player of this Olympic team. But I think if it's going to require a hero, I think it's going to be LeBron or Steph.
Last question for you. If Team USA somehow, some way manages to fail bringing home the gold, because we all believe they're going to, they're the favorites. If they manage to not pull this off, what are we going to say about them? What are we going to say about Team USA? What are we going to say about the NBA players who represented them?
I think Team USA is so talented that they may just win it on talent because that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years. But we don't have a team. We have a collection of players. And I do think there could be a time when we have to pick a team. And what I mean by that is a team that plays together for 3 summers leading into the Olympics. That's what these other teams do. For most of these teams, this is their 3rd consecutive summer playing together. And it may not be the best players, but we may need to pick 12 guys who are going to commit to 3 straight summers who can create a continuity. But that said, they've won the last 4 golds. They win 3 games in the knockout round, it'll be 5 in a row. And if it ain't broke, you don't have to fix it. But where I think Team USA is vulnerable is that their talent edge is diminished, and it puts more of a emphasis on the need for team continuity, and we don't have it. And so I suspect that at some point when we lose the gold medal, whether it's this year, whether it's in 2028 in LA, or whether it's in 2032, but it's going to happen at some point. Right. When we lose the gold medal, the pivot will be to get a 3-year commitment and put together a true national team, not necessarily a all Hall of Fame or All-Star team.
I promise you this is the very last question. You've been covering LeBron James since junior high school. He's achieved everything you could possibly achieve. 4-time league MVP, 4-time champion, all-time leading scorer, all of this other stuff. Now the man is the flag bearer for Team USA, for the men's. He's going to be carrying the American flag. What does that mean? The LeBron James that you know and what he's endured throughout his life, what does it mean to him, and what does it mean to you to have seen him achieve this moment?
The other night in London, he puts on this show. It was the biggest crowd ever to watch a basketball game in England history. And he's 39 years old, and he puts on a show and lights up the entire building and sends everybody home with a memory. His teammates are looking at each other on the bench just in awe because this is what they watched in some cases growing up. And so for him to be at age 39 doing this, still achieving things, he played his first Olympics in 2004. He's one of the oldest. This flotilla is about to come down the river here behind me. He's one of the oldest people in this entire flotilla of all these thousands of athletes. He's one of the oldest ones, and he's still one of the best. And he's
Wow.
still, wowing people, and he's still, making history. Like this is unheard of, and this is why I always say LeBron's claim to greatness is the longevity, because I believe no one has
Yeah,
been this
absolutely.
good for this long. And for some people, they reject that argument and there's no talking them out of it. But LeBron's claim is longevity. It's
Mhm.
shown in the NBA and it is showing on the Olympic stage where he may win medals 20 years apart. Go find the history
Mhm.
of athletes in America or anywhere who've won medals 20 years apart, especially in a sport like basketball, where it's not an individual
Wendy.
sport, where it's a team sport.
Hmm.
It's on the edge of being unheard of. And so he's not the one thing I say, there's not a ceremonial role he's got here. He's got a big role on this team.
I'll close this discussion with you by saying this. I've never budged from Michael Jordan being the best ever. But that's because I go from Michael Jordan at his best, LeBron James at his best, comparing the two like that. If the category of longevity comes into play, I would stand down and easily hand that to LeBron
Right.
James without
And
question.
and anybody who says their bar for the greatest ever is the highest peak, I think Jordan has it without doubt. When it comes to the breadth of it,
That's where I'm
I
at.
mean, do you prefer the entire Rocky Mountain Range or Mount Everest? I mean, that's a little bit
There you
of
go.
an awkward comparison, but like, they don't have the tallest mountains in Colorado, but go tell me the views aren't unbelievable and unique. So that's kind of what he's doing, and he keeps adding on to it every year, amazingly.
Proud of you, my man. Keep up the great work. By the way, when can we see you on the Hoop Collective? When can we see that?
Yeah, it's coming out. We have two a week right now. I think we're putting out on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we'll be doing it. We're doing it live
Okay.
from here in Paris, and things are, it's been quite a journey with this team. Been on three continents, covering
Hmm.
this team so far. It's amazing to be out there covering, LeBron and Steph and Durant and Embiid and Jason Tatum and all these guys. Like, even the coaching staff. You got Spolstra and Ty Lue and Steve Kerr. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch all these guys go in the Hall of Fame, and so it's an incredible experience. This is in Olympics in Paris. It's a pretty special moment, and I think everybody understands that. And that's what Steve Kerr's trying to get him to do. Stephen A. is to understand the moment, and I certainly do. I certainly understand how big this moment is. We're about to start a real special time.
I'll be watching, man, and I will definitely be watching you. Proud of you. Keep up the great work, my man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule in Paris, of all places, for
Have a
the
great
Olympics,
weekend.
man. Thank you so much, Wendy. You take care of yourself. We'll talk soon. You do the
Bye bye.
same. You heard him, the one and only Brian Windhorst right here. I can't dispute it. If you're talking longevity, and I'm glad he brought that up because Mount Everest compared to that long Rocky Mountain Road. No, I'm not the Rocky Mountain Road. I'm about Mount Everest. And to me, for Mount Everest, when you look at Michael Jordan and LeBron James, I'm going with Michael Jordan all day, every day. But if you talk about longevity, there's no question that LeBron James, he's first. He's first. Nobody has done. We haven't seen this. We haven't seen this. Okay, this is something special to behold. And I'm not going to take that away from him. Happy that he's going to be the flag bearer. Happy that he's representing Team USA. Don't think he should be the best player on Team USA, but he's playing ball. He's balling out. Let's see what he does as the Olympic Games get set to begin and whether or not Steph Curry and the rest of the crew going to step up and join him. Anyway, thanks again to the one and only Brian Windhorst right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio.